negotiate. Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called they want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States. Iran wants to negotiate, yes. We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up. But we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. Right. But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate. Thank you.
That's President Trump from Air Force One saying that over the weekend, Iran is interested in talking. Now, that's a pretty incredible development as well. So we will continue to watch and see how these protests in Iran continue to affect their relationship, of course, within their country, but also on the global scale. Let's get our guest on. Katie Pavlich joins us. It's so exciting to have you here, Katie, with us, the new primetime host of Katie Pavlich Tonight on News Nation, weeknights here in Central Time at 9 p.m. Katie, welcome to the Annie Frey Show. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Annie. It's great to be on your show.
Well, it's an honor here on our part. I've watched you for a long time, very impressed with what you bring to the table, and I'm excited to see what that's going to mean at 9 o'clock on News Nation. Katie, I want to give you a very open-ended question and just give me your first thoughts on these developments over the weekend in Iran, watching the protesters. I've seen some of your posts on X highlighting some of what the women are doing there. It's pretty BA. Watching what they're willing to stand up and do. Just give us your thoughts on Iran at this moment in time.
Yeah, I don't typically smoke cigarettes, but when I do, it's to be like those amazing, brave Iranian women who are trying to change their country and have been for a very long time. As you mentioned and played the sound from Air Force One, President Trump has said that the leaders in Iran are interested in negotiating. That I'm not surprised given that they've seen what just happened with Maduro and, of course, President Trump's strike on their nuclear program last year in June. And he's made a number of threats over the last couple of weeks, and they're taking him seriously. Now, they better not be playing games either, just by trying to, get a lifeline from the United States as the regime, is about to be toppled from within. I mean, it's incredible to watch the footage that's been able to get out, which is limited because the government in Iran shut down all the internet. They're killing people by the thousands, not by the hundreds, as some people are reporting, but the thousands, burning government buildings, as you said, burning photos of the leadership there. So, they're on their last leg here trying to get their last breath. And so we'll see if the president takes action like he's been threatening to do, if they come to some kind of negotiated agreement. But the bottom line is the Iranian regime and the leadership, they haven't changed their stripes at all, which was a lot of people accepted was going to be the case even after the strike on the Iranian nuclear sites. So it's a precarious situation, but for President Trump, he's been very clear that if they don't stop killing people in the streets, that there may be some action taken by the U.S.
Is it appropriate for the United States to step in that moment if a government is murdering people in the streets, their own people? What's an appropriate reaction?
Well, according to the president, he thinks it would be appropriate. I think, there's obviously big questions about what would come next if there were to be some kind of regime change. I know that the president's meeting with a number of leaders to see how that might work out, who they could maybe help get into power if the regime were to be taken down finally. But it is in the interest of the United States to have a stable Iran, which has been the number one reason why the Middle East has been unstable since the 1980s. They've been funding all of the proxy terrorist groups that have attacked U.S. troops in the region, but also have murdered Americans. Let's not forget that Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy group before 9/11, had killed more Americans than any other terrorist organization in the world. The Hezbollah is also very active in Venezuela, trafficking drugs and setting up, terrorist hubs there. So all of it's very closely connected to a number of things happening in our hemisphere and, of course, over there. So as the president said, when he talked about Venezuela, and so did Marco Rubio, we need neighbors who are stable, but we also need the ability for a country thousands of miles away from our hemisphere not to be causing chaos that requires us to be more involved.
Is this moment in time, we're speaking with Katie Pavlich right now, is this moment in time, like when we're talking about open discussions with Iran or how we might be involved, actually involved in Iran due to the circumstances that are taking place there, is this different than other times in history? Is Iran in a different position right now for America to be involved and to kind of throw their weight into the situation?
Well, it's a great question because, we've seen these uprisings before. The Green Revolution during the Obama years, where it was very close to being a change driven by the people of Iran. And the Obama administration kind of sat by and didn't do much, leading to the Iranian nuclear deal, which, of course, President Trump got out of, a number of other terrorist attacks driven by the regime. So that you are seeing now, based on the footage, that these protests and this new revolution is having more impact than previously. And also that you combine that with the strikes on the nuclear program, which of course was the crown jewel of the regime last year, and it's a bad combination for them. And you add the sanctions that have been put on by the Trump administration over the course of just the past year, which some of them were limited by the Biden administration. The economy has been absolutely terrible for Iran, and people are tired of it. So it's an interesting combination of events. Whether it will actually be toppled, is to be foreseen. And we've seen this play out before, where they got really close, the people of Iran, and it didn't exactly work out for them. So I think we'll just have to keep watching to see what happens.
Yeah, certainly. Katie Pavlich speaking with us right now, the primetime host of Katie Pavlich Tonight on NewsNation. Weeknights at 9 p.m. starts next Monday. Is that correct?
Next Monday. Yep.
Are you excited?
January 19th.
You've been on TV for so long, and you've filled in. We've seen your face so many different places, talking about so many different things. Hosting has got to be, especially when you're doing it every night. How excited are you for this opportunity, and what are people going to get when they tune in?
I am absolutely thrilled for this opportunity. There's so much happening in Washington, D.C. I always love to say that, this job is amazing, and you working in media as well, because we have a front row seat to history. Every day is different. We're going to be having on some of the biggest newsmakers of the day, lots of administration officials. We're going to have debates on the show. And we're also going to have a little fun, and we're going to do some segments to honor our military. We're going to focus on blue-collar workers. I grew up in a car wash. My parents owned a car wash, so I want to make sure that, we're in the Beltway, but we don't get stuck in the bubble where we're not actually understanding what's going on outside of Washington, D.C. and the Capitol, and how the things happening on Capitol Hill and in the White House and the policy decisions that are made are affecting everyday Americans who don't spend all their time necessarily on Twitter or on X, and they want to tune in at 10 o'clock, see what's going on, have it make sense to them, and understand why it should matter to them. That's going to be our goal every night. And the news cycle changes by the minute.
Yes.
So every day is going to be like drinking from a fire hose, but I like that. And we have a great team that's ready to step up to the challenge. So I'm really excited for this opportunity.
Well, we're excited for the opportunity to see, to have options out there of what we can tune into. And you'll be airing on NewsNation weeknights in Central Time, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern, of course. And I think that these issues really, like when you're talking about getting outside of the Beltway, of course, we're in the heart of the Midwest here in St. Louis. We have an interesting perspective on state politics. I live in Illinois, blue state, as blue as can be, red state. I think both states have supermajorities in their general assemblies of the opposite parties. So we get to kind of watch and see up close here. But from the Midwest, sometimes it looks a little bit different than the direction the national news goes quite a bit. Minnesota, we were talking about Minnesota, like, do they consider themselves to be Midwest or Northern? And one of our associate producers here has family in Minnesota, and he said that mostly they're Midwest. I think that a lot of Minnesota stuff kind of gets to get looked over because they're flyover country. And right now the exposure of what's coming to Minnesota, even though I think that a lot of this Rachel Good, the tragic death of a protester who got lied to by her political party and lost her life because of it. What's coming in Minnesota, do you think, right now? What kind of reckoning is coming to the way they've been doing business as usual for quite some time?
Well, I think that the Department of Justice is seriously investigating not just the people who were involved directly in the fraud of these daycares, right? The ones who were fraudulently filing the paperwork and claiming that they were there to have children and then no one was there, but also the politicians who allowed this to happen. What did they know? When did they know it? And why did they continue to allow it? Because there's no way that Governor Tim Walz, who was bragging on the campaign trail when he was the vice presidential candidate for Kamala Harris, about the daycares, that he didn't know that everything was not exactly going, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And this has started in Minnesota, but and with one program, but this kind of fraud is happening all over the country. And I think that much of the federal deficit that we have, budget deficit, is due to fraud. And it's not just in terms of one program for daycares. It's in Medicaid. It's in SNAP. So I think you're going to see all over the country different federal government agencies like the USDA, for example, Medicaid services, and investigators from DOJ going into these local programs and finding a lot of this fraud and putting a stop to it. In Minnesota was just ground zero for the exposure.
It'll be interesting to see how successful the Trump administration is in seeing this fraud exposure all the way through, taking our economic system completely down to the studs. What kind of generational, if not historically unprecedented impact it could have on the future of this country.
Yeah, and this administration has prided itself on returning the American economy to a private sector-driven economy and getting billions of dollars. I mean, to think that there is $18 billion of fraud just in Minnesota on this one program is insane. And so this is also part of that, getting the government out of places it should not be, reducing fraud, making sure that money that's taken from taxpayers that is earned through hard work is not stolen to make people, rich, whether they're politicians or people who have come here and they're taking advantage of the system. But, that I think is part of the bigger process here of returning the American economy to a private sector driven economy, not one that is driven by the federal government, taking from makers and producers and giving it to those who are not doing anything but lining their own pockets.
Well, Katie Pavlich, we hope you'll come back and talk to us. We're excited to tune into Katie.
I would love to.
Pavlich Tonight, News Nation, weeknights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. Starts next Monday. Is that correct?
Starts next Monday, week from today. We're almost there.
We're excited for you and for us to be able to watch at 9 p.m. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much for having me on. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye. Former news editor